Imagine you're cleaning out your grandparents' house and you find an old metal lockbox. Or maybe you open up a dusty old safe that hasn't been touched in 50 years. Inside, among old papers, you find a stack of beautifully engraved, official-looking documents. You might be tempted to just toss them in the trash with the other old documents, or stock certificates, for companies with names that sound like they straight out of a history book. The Klondike Big Inch Mining Company, the Transcontinental Railroad, the American Ice Company, and beautiful collectible markets there is, the world of Scripophily, the collecting of antique stock and bond certificates. Your first thought is almost certainly, well, these companies are long gone, so these papers must be completely worthless. But for a passionate group of collectors, known as Scripophilists, their value shifted. Today, we're going to give you the insider's guide to identifying these paper treasures. How do you separate the common decorative pieces from the truly valuable ones? The value is determined by a fascinating combination of art, history, and rarity. We'll show you what makes a certificate valuable. Explore the legendary Grail finds. This is the ultimate lottery ticket in the world of Scripophily. Every certificate had to be signed by company officers, usually the president and the secretary. What if the president of that company was a famous historical figure? A standard stock certificate from the Standard Oil Company might be worth $100. But a Standard Oil certificate, personally signed by its founder, John D. Rockefeller, is a holy grail item that can be worth tens of thousands of dollars. The certificates issued by the two main companies, the Union Pacific and the Central Pacific Railroads, are tangible pieces of that story. They represent the immense financial and physical effort it took to unite the country by rail. It controlled almost all oil production and refining in the country. Certificate from this original trust is an artifact from the height of the Gilded Age and the era of the so-called robber barons. Collectors love certificates with evocative names like the Tombstone Mining and Milling Company from Arizona, or any company related to the famous Comstock Lode in Nevada. The vignettes are often fantastic, showing detailed scenes of mining operations, rugged prospectors, or the boomtowns themselves. Most of them failed. A stock certificate from one of these defunct automakers is a rare piece of automotive history. The ultimate prize is a certificate from the Tucker Corporation. Preston Tucker's story of taking on the giants of Detroit with his advanced car of tomorrow. In 1948 is a famous American tale of innovation and controversy. Companies produced millions of very colorful and optimistic-looking certificates to lure investors. While the vast majority of these companies were worthless, the certificates themselves are now collected for their vibrant colors and historical appeal. Because the company was so short-lived, any original document, especially a stock certificate, is a holy grail for car enthusiasts and can be worth thousands. A certificate for the Deadwood Terra Mine in the Dakota Territory, signed by the legendary lawman Wyatt Earp during his time there, is a real and incredibly valuable collectible that perfectly merges financial and Old West history. Find out who the officers were during the year your certificate was issued. Is it a generic stock image of an eagle, or is it a specific detailed scene directly related to the company's business? The quality and subject of the art is a key indicator of its appeal to collectors. You can often find this information in old business directories or historical archives. Websites like Spink or Scripophily.com have extensive archives. And tell us in the comments what historic American company you would most love to find a certificate from. You should also check the sold listings on eBay. Read the names, admire the artwork, and do a little research. You aren't just holding a financial document, you are holding a piece of history. And it might just be a beautiful and very valuable hidden treasure. Search for the company name followed by stock certificate. This will give you a real-world view of what similar items are selling for. You might discover that the signature of a seemingly obscure secretary belongs to someone who later became a famous politician or industrialist. For any potentially major signature, consulting an autograph authentication service like PSA, DNA, or JSA is the only way to confirm its authenticity and unlock its true value. These certificates are historical dynamite. The most important information is printed right on the front. What is the full name of the company? What is the date the certificate was issued? And who signed it as president and secretary? They are tangible links to the greatest stories of American industry, from the railroads that tamed a continent, to the mines that fueled its growth, to the automotive and aviation pioneers who changed the world. They represent the dreams, the ambitions, and sometimes the failures that built the country. Even if you don't recognize the names, write them down. Your research starts here. Many certificates from smaller but still significant lines can be purchased for under $100 and are collected purely for their beautiful train vignettes. They make for fantastic display pieces. Certificates from iconic names like Pan American World Airways, Trans World Airlines, or Eastern Airlines are very popular with aviation buffs and can be surprisingly valuable. And as mentioned, if you were to find one that was personally signed by John D. Rockefeller, you would be holding one of the most valuable documents in American financial history, easily a six-figure item. Collectors prize the earliest certificates from the 1860s and 70s, which often feature stunning vignettes of steam engines, survey crews in the mountains, or allegorical figures representing the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans meeting. Finding an early, uncancelled certificate from one of these two legendary railroads is a major discovery. The same goes for certificates signed by other titans of industry, invention, or finance. Imagine finding a document signed by Thomas Edison, Henry Ford, J.P. Morgan, or even a famous Wild West figure like Wyatt Earp, who was involved in mining ventures. The signature can elevate a simple certificate into a world-class collectible. Before color printing was common, the security printing companies that made these certificates, like the famous American Banknote Company, employed armies of master engravers to create intricate and beautiful illustrations to prevent counterfeiting. How many certificates from this specific company are known to exist? Is it in good condition, without major tears, stains, or heavy folds that disrupt the artwork? You should also check if the certificate has been canceled. Canceled certificates, which have been redeemed or voided, will usually have hole punches, stamps, or writing on them, indicating they are no longer valid. Uncancelled certificates are generally rarer and can be worth more, though this isn't always the case, especially if the cancellation marks are interesting. Is the vignette a stunning, large, and detailed picture of a steam locomotive thundering across a prairie? A romanticized scene of miners with pickaxes and mules? Railroads are by far the #1 most collected category, thanks to the beautiful and romantic vignettes of steam locomotives and westward expansion. Following that, mining, especially from the Gold Rush and Wild West eras, is hugely popular. Automotive, aviation, and early technology companies are also highly sought after. An allegorical figure of Lady Liberty, or a majestic eagle. The more beautiful, detailed, and evocative the artwork, the more desirable the certificate is as a piece of art. A simple certificate with just text is far less valuable than one with a stunning, frame-worthy vignette, and give you a step-by-step guide on what to do if you stumble upon a portfolio of forgotten companies. They were no longer financial instruments. They were historical artifacts. These documents are collected not for their claim on a defunct company, but for their beauty, their rarity, and their direct connection to the great stories of American capitalism. But for over 2 centuries, owning a piece of a company meant you received a physical document, a certificate that was both a legal claim and, often, a work of art. A certificate from a major, historically important company is like owning a piece of that story. A stock from the Pennsylvania Railroad or the Wells Fargo Express Company is a direct link to a giant of American industry. A certificate from a car company is interesting, but one from the Tucker Corporation, the famously defiant and short-lived automaker, is a legendary piece of automotive history. Sometimes even the opposite is true. A certificate from a completely bizarre or fraudulent enterprise can be valuable precisely because of its strange story. These certificates were the tangible embodiment of American industry, ambition, and innovation. They financed the railroads that crossed the continent, the mines that fueled the gold rush, and the factories that built the modern world. But before you do, you need to take a much closer look. What if the stock itself is worthless, but the paper is the treasure? What if that beautifully engraved certificate is a rare piece of financial art, a historical artifact signed by a famous person that could be worth hundreds or even thousands of dollars to the right collector? Today on Treasure Hunters, we are opening the books on one of the most surprising welcome back to treasure hunters. In today's digital world, stock ownership is just a number on a screen. As these companies folded or were acquired, their certificates became legally worthless. The market for these certificates is thriving, and because most people assume they are worthless. Countless valuable examples are still tucked away in old books, desks, and safes, waiting to be rediscovered. So you've found a stack of old certificates. First, and for many collectors, the most important factor is the vignette, the engraved illustration on the certificate. This is the art of the stock. Second is the company's historical significance. What story does the company tell? Third, and this is where the value can truly explode, is the signature. Fourth is rarity and condition. It's like any collectible, rarity matters. Finally, the industry matters. Certain categories are more popular with collectors. Now let us look at some of the legendary certificates that represent the peak of the hobby, the kind of finds that could be hiding in that old lockbox. Grail number 1. Early Transcontinental Railroad stocks. The building of the Transcontinental Railroad in the 1860s is one of the great epics of American history. Grail number 2. The Standard Oil Trust Certificate. Before it was broken up by the U.S. government in 1911 for being an illegal monopoly, John D. Rockefeller's Standard Oil Trust was the single most powerful and feared company on earth. Grail number S. Wild West and Gold Rush mining companies. The mythology of the American West of prospectors, gunslingers, and boomtowns is captured perfectly in the stock certificates of old mining companies. Grail number 4. Early and defunct automobile companies. Before Detroit was dominated by the Big Three, hundreds of small, ambitious car companies sprang up all across America. Okay, a Rockefeller-signed certificate is a dream. But there are countless other fascinating and valuable certificates that are much more likely to be found. Common but beautiful railroads. You might not find a Union Pacific number 1, but there were thousands of railroad companies in America. Colorful mining stocks. In the late 19th and early 20th centuries, there was a frenzy of mining speculation. Defunct airlines. The history of American aviation is full of famous airlines that were eventually bought out or went bankrupt. You found a certificate. It looks old and interesting. What are your next steps? Step 1. Identify the company, date, and signatures. Step 2. Research the signatures. This is critical. Go online and research the history of the company you've identified. Step 3. Examine the vignette. Look closely at the artwork. Step 4. Use online resources. It's the best way to get a sense of value is to check Scripophily auction sites or dealers. These old stock and bond certificates are so much more than worthless paper. They are miniature masterpieces of the engraver's art. So, the next time you are going through a box of old family papers or browse an antique store, take a closer look at any old certificates you find. Please hit that like button. Subscribe.